I think it's probably one of the most horrifying ways a man could die. You're on your way home, you're almost there, and all of a sudden you got this car come up and people are shooting at you. You've been targeted.
You know, I thought, well, they're gonna solve this murder, and they never did.
How does that happen in Mountain Home, Arkansas?
And then she tells me that Dr. Millstein was murdered.
It was obvious that somebody was really mad at the doctor.
How many people do you know have 2 murdered husbands?
Your husband's dead. Help us. Who was mad at him? What's going on in his life?
I'm sorry, I can't do this. I can't do this. I need to go outside. It makes me sick.
In the aftermath of a murder, those closest to the victim are left questioning everything. They are consumed by a need for the truth. These are the stories of people on a journey to find it, but their search may reveal secrets they never anticipated that change their lives forever.
I want to take you out to my father's house. And this is Barrett Road. Used to be Old Arkansas Highway. This is the house. It's run down. The yard has not been taken care of.
Denise's dad, Jerry Parks, was a Little Rock police officer turned private eye who owned his own security firm. Every Friday night, he went to the same restaurant with his wife, Lois Jane. But on September 26, 1993, she was sick, so he went alone.
And on his way back out here, he was ambushed. My dad's Cadillac was in the shop because he was having something done to it, so he was driving the company car, which he hardly ever did. He was coming home down Chenal Parkway. Back then, there was not a Walmart or any businesses out here. And the spot where he was gunned down is right here at Chenal Parkway and Highway 10. He had rolled through, the stoplight was there, he had rolled through here. The person who shot him came around and opened fire on the vehicle. His vehicle rolled out into the middle of this intersection. He died right here. He died right here. Can we get out of here right now? Can we do that? Okay. I got the autopsy and it shows he was shot in the back 5 times. You know, I thought, well, they're gonna solve this murder. And they never did, and they didn't return calls after about, I don't know, 5, 6 years. It was like it just didn't even matter. That's the way I took it, is that they didn't care. I mean, because if, you know, a victim calls you about a homicide and you don't call them back, it's pretty much telling somebody that you don't care.
Though there was no witness to the murder itself, investigators agreed it was a targeted hit, likely at the hand of a hired gun. But after months and months of investigation, they never closed in on a suspect.
Just kind of got set to the side, and 26 years later, nothing. So, I don't know.
Desperate for any information that might finally uncover the truth, Denise has devoted her life to solving her dad's murder.
I created this blog just to get my dad's story out there, seeking justice for Jerry Parks. And it's got some articles, newspaper clippings and stuff.
Now she's hoping that public awareness of this case will push the Little Rock PD into reopening the investigation.
You know, I have read everything online over and over, researched it, and I believe it can be solved if they just work it. I believe I deserve answers. I don't believe in closure because he's still gone. However, there is justice. Just to know that somebody's paying for what they did, I think it would be a whole lot easier to heal, to know that the people responsible for this are locked up where they should be. They deserve to pay for what they did.
At the time of Jerry's murder, Bill Mullinex was Jerry's right-hand man.
It's amazing how things disappear after 20-something years that went by. I feel like I'm looking for Easter eggs. Well, there's my security ID badge, so I was certified by the state of Arkansas through the State Board of Private Investigators and Security Officers to work security. I worked for Jerry Parks with American Industrial Services, which is also American Contract Services.
One of the company's biggest jobs was protecting the Clinton-Gore presidential campaign headquarters back in 1992.
And then this kind of shows the relationship we had with Bill Clinton. We were invited to the things that had to do with the inauguration and the parties and things that were there.
Because of his connection with the Clintons, Jerry Parks' murder got lots of publicity.
Jerry Parks and I both had a law enforcement background. In time, we got to share in law enforcement stories with me, and we became very close friends. Also met his daughter, Denise, during that time. She came to work there for a short time, and I got to know her even more after her father passed away. I've probably got 5 people in my life that I liked and I cared about and I respected altogether. A big piece of my life was gone when Jerry Parks was murdered. He wasn't going to be back at work. Wasn't someone I could reach out to anymore. It was hard.
Denise has been researching the possibility that someone close to home could have arranged a hit on her father. This morning, Denise has arranged to meet with Bill Mullinex for the first time in years.
Hey, coffee.
Yes, absolutely.
Hi, good, how are you?
How you doing?
I'm doing good, how are you?
All right.
You been doing good?
Actually, it's been kind of weird.
You're getting kind of old here.
I know.
Where's your hair? It fall off?
My mom said if I didn't straighten it up, she's going to pull it all out.
Well, there you go.
We was going through a bunch of stuff at the house, and I found a couple of things that I just bought the whole box. But you ready for this?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard.
He lost a bunch of weight here. I want a copy of that.
All right.
When we were at the cemetery, I remember sitting down there for, it seemed like hours.
That was bad. That whole day was bad.
Why would his widow stand at the coffin and talk about how handsome he looked in his coffin?
3 days later.
Yeah.
In the time you should be grieving and trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to put your life together, she took his diamond pinky ring, took the stone out of it,
And
and had a ring made for her.
Right.
Lois Jane's coldness came as no surprise to Denise.
My parents divorced when I was 3, and my dad remarried Jane. And I would see him once a year at Christmas and then a week in the summer. I really didn't grow up around him. And as a teenager, I felt like he neglected me for her, and I was kind of mad at him about that. And then I had a baby, and my dad and I got close. I never had a relationship with Jane Parks. Jane made me feel unwelcome. Even as a kid, I felt like she didn't want me around. And she didn't. My dad and Jane had 2 sons together, Gary Parks and Michael Parks. I remember her being really mean to them, to the boys. She was more so mean to Gary. He was always the one in trouble. I didn't want to be there. I felt like I wasn't welcome there. I was 26 years old when my father was murdered. I remember getting a phone call from Jane, and she told me that my dad had been hurt. And I said, "What do you mean he's been hurt? Where is he?" And she said, "He's dead." And I dropped the phone, and I just got sick to my stomach. When I get to Little Rock, there's cops everywhere. When I go back into my dad and Jane's bedroom, and she's sitting on the bed, rocking back and forth. She got on black sunglasses in the house. She's rocking back and forth, hollering, "Oh, my Jerry, not a tear in her eye."
Denise had little to do with her stepmother in the months that followed. And 2 years after her father's murder, she found out that Lois Jane had married a urologist named David Millstein.
He was a good man. He was always finding the bright side to something, you know.
When I was investigating Dr. Millstein, man, I'm not kidding you, I couldn't find anybody that had anything bad to say about the man. He was a good doctor, friendly doctor, and he treated people that didn't have the means to pay. And I learned through the course of the investigation that some of those people he treated for free. And that didn't come from just one person, that came from several people. So that told me where the man's heart was, you know.
I never met Dr. Millstein, never met him, didn't know anything about him. I knew that he was a doctor and that he was married to Jane, and that's all I knew. It was like she just moved on. You know, you've been married to my dad 20-something years and he was murdered and now you're in love with somebody else. It was strange. It was very strange.
For the next 11 years, Denise continued searching in vain for any new information to reopen her dad's murder investigation. Then on June 18th, 2006, she got some shocking news.
I remember laying on the couch watching TV when the phone rang. My aunt called me and she said, "There's a detective out of Mountain Home wanting to talk to you." And I was like, "For what?" And she tells me that Dr. Millstein was murdered. And I was like, oh my God. How many people do you know have 2 murdered husbands? She says it's cold out here.
Yeah, I hope that everything works out with your dad's case. They can get some justice for you and your dad.
Come on, Bill. I'm still in September 26th of 1993. You know, it's a long time to wait for justice.
Well, at least you're finally getting some attention on it and somebody is finally looking into it.
On June 18th, 2006, Dr. Millstein failed to show up for his shift at the hospital. So co-workers asked police to conduct a welfare check. Police found him dead on the bedroom floor with his throat split and more than 30 stab wounds. The kind of overkill you expect from someone very close to the victim. Denise believes the murder of Dr. David Millstein, her stepmother's second husband, and Jerry Parks, her father, are linked. After their meeting, Denise and Bill begin a journey they hope will end in justice for Jerry. They drive to the security company where Bill and Jerry worked together back in 1993, before Jerry's murder.
I guess time changes everything, but it's just not what it was. I think part of it's because Mr. Parks is not here.
Denise remembers how Gary, Parks' son, and her half-brother was allegedly caught stealing here, just one of the many times Gary tried their father's patience.
So when Gary broke in here, how did he get in here?
He broke in your dad's office and took office supplies. Your dad had a couple of cell phones, pagers, and things like that. Those were all stolen. Gary's
behavior had caused friction in the Parks household, with Lois Jane always taking her son's side.
The relationship between Gary and Lois Jane was real unusual. They were like inseparable. I mean, he would do anything for his mom. He was a mama's boy. Gary could do no wrong. They spent so much time together, you would hear that she went out to eat with Gary. Why not go eat with your husband?
Just a few days before Jerry's murder, his patience with Gary had finally run out.
My dad found stolen merchandise. From what I understand, there was guns, drugs in the back of Gary's car. He was going to turn them into the police on Monday.
He told me things was fixing to change in his home. For sure, Gary was going to be gone. If she didn't straighten up, there was going to be a divorce. Lois Jane, she at that time told everyone that she had MS. So for years, we thought she had MS. And it was just probably within 3 weeks before Mr. Parks was killed that he informed me that she didn't have MS, that she had a drug addiction problem. He found out the doctor was giving her scripts and she was going to 2 different pharmacies and that she was doing prescription drugs. You're gonna lose the person that's supplying all your income and has got everything, the home that you live, the lifestyle you're living. That person's fixing to boot you out the door because he's finally realized that in his family that the thing that stinks is them.
Before he could ever get to turn Gary in on that Monday, he was murdered Sunday night.
These days, Denise is putting her faith in Nevin Barnes, a veteran homicide detective who led the Millstein murder investigation back in 2006. She's hoping that some clues about her dad's murder are still hiding in the Millstein case files. From the start, Barnes knew it would be a complex case.
Nevin Barnes gave me a sense of hope, and he's the first investigator that I guess I had ever trusted. When I found out that Millstein had been murdered, it took me back to 1993 when my dad was murdered. I did talk with Lieutenant Barnes, it being the same family with 2 homicides. I did speak with him and, just told him what information that I had as far as what happened to our father.
The guys had already processed the scene, photographs, logging everything. It was a very violent and brutal crime. We don't have that type of violence. It's very rare, so I knew that we had our work cut out for us. When you're a cop, and you've done it as long as I have, when you see injustice, you want to do something about it. What someone's willing to do to another person is just still, to this day, unbelievable.
I was office manager for Dr. Millstein, and I couldn't say enough about him. He was just a wonderful doctor. Sorry. He was 62 years old. He didn't get to see the rest of his life, or his kids' life, or his grandchildren's. How does that happen in Mountain Home, Arkansas?
The doctor and his wife, Lois Jane, maintain 2 homes, one in Mountain Home and one in North Little Rock, a 3-hour drive away, where she often stayed with her son, Gary.
She came up here and stayed with him some weekends, and then some weekends he would travel down there and stay with her.
What was their relationship that you knew?
That I knew, I just think it was argumentative, I think, disagreements. It all went back to money. And she took care of Gary. If he needed money, she supplied it, so he didn't work.
The evening before the murder, several people in David Millstein's office overheard him arguing with Lois Jane on the phone.
There was a disagreement over money that Gary had taken the week leading into the homicide. Dr. Millstein and Lois Jane were having an argument about Gary taking emergency money the doctor had set aside in his dresser. And the doc was pretty upset, saying, I've had it, I've had enough, so it ends tonight. No more money, he needs to get a job and go to work. He goes, I'm finished. I'm finished with him.
In the weeks before this happening, Dr. Millstein was very anxious, nervous type person in the office, and that wasn't like him. He worried about different things. He worried about his wife, Lois, coming up with Gary from Little Rock. I asked him once, I said, why are you worried? He said, they just cause trouble whenever they're up here. They always want something. I found a folder with prescriptions in it written out to Gary, and when I pulled those out and asked the doctor one day, I said, what is this? He said, oh, those are just prescriptions I got Gary to get him off my back. Get him off your back? He said, yeah, he threatens me when I don't give him the drug medicine, when I don't write the prescriptions. It's okay. He said, it's okay. I write him a prescription and he goes away for a while.
Looking at the case, how many times that he was stabbed, and what the crime scene showed us. It was obvious to me that somebody was really, really mad at the doctor. Passion, anger was all there. You start with family.
Now with 2 murdered husbands, Lois Jane was the first to face scrutiny after David Millstein's death. Though she'd been staying 140 miles away that night in their Little Rock condo, as she often did, the widow's behavior raised a lot of eyebrows.
She never called myself or the police department, not even one time, to find out what was going on in her husband's investigation. We tried to get her to come to the police department to give us a statement to help us. Your husband's dead. Help us. Who was mad at him? What's going on in his life? The first interview we had with her was, I believe, about 16 days after the homicide. She brought her lawyer with her from Little Rock.
Her attorney she was using was an old family friend. And naturally, when you're in a police department in an interview, you don't have any reasonable expectation of privacy.
Hang on just a second, okay? I'm sorry.
So it's audio and videos going the whole time. And the attorney he's messing with her hair, trying to get her hair right, you know? I mean, he's touching her. And then he's calling her babe. Of course, we're all in the back room. We have a monitor, and we're all going, what do you call her? Babe? Not Miss Lois Jane or, you know, client.
Rumors started to swirl that Lois Jane and Richard Grasby were more than just client and attorney.
You're not a suspect. You didn't read it right. You're not a suspect. Sorry, I was always...
Dr. Millstein was actually trying to hold his marriage together. Didn't believe in divorce, was trying to hold it together.
Was there any talk about you moving back up here?
Yeah. But it wouldn't have lasted.
Any arguments over money or anything like that?
No, I don't think there was an argument. David told me that he thought Gary could have been a little softer when he talked to him Thursday night. But Gary's just not that way, you know. He just kind of comes to the point.
Yeah, you could say that.
You know?
I'm on the right track. Definitely a black widow.
Lois Jane's odd behavior didn't end there.
That was about 9 days after he passed. And she is suing Dr. Millstein and his company, Twin Lakes Urology, for money because she claims in this document that she had lent him this amount and he was going to pay it back, so she didn't get it back, so now she's suing for the money.
I didn't know David was in the kind of debt that he was in.
I thought it amazing that the first thing I would think of if my husband passed is, now I got to get these documents together so I can get my money back.
Detective Barnes came into some interesting information regarding Gary's actions after the Millstein murder.
The week leading up to the homicide, Gary Parks stopped in Heber Springs and inquired about a 43 by 14 foot used houseboat. It was $35,000, and he told the owner that he was getting ready to come into a bunch of money and he would buy the boat. That was the 3 or 4 days before the homicide.
Gary Parks, Jerry's son and Millstein's stepson, had come under scrutiny before. Back in 1993, just days after his dad's death, he made a video promoting a false conspiracy theory about the murder.
Lois Jane and Gary Parks, right from the get-go, was telling everyone that it was because of our association with the Clinton campaign and because he had been doing a private investigation of his own into Bill Clinton was the reason that he was killed. Neither was true.
My father was Jerry Parks. He was the head of Clinton's security for Clinton's inaugural campaign whenever he was running for president. My father had a file on Bill Clinton's infidelity and his affairs. The file consisted of pictures, time, dates, places.
The security we provided for them was for the building for the National Campaign Headquarters. We didn't supply any security for Bill Clinton or any of his family, anything like that.
Who put that out there and what?
Jane and my half-brother Gary, they spun that a million different ways.
He was the head of Clinton security.
Lois, Jane, and Gary, they sold these lies to magazines, went on different news shows and things, and got paid big bucks for doing it.
He was the head of Clinton security. I feel that Bill Clinton had my father killed to save his political career.
Watching this video makes me mad. We're not going to get him back. He makes me sick. There's something bad wrong with that boy.
Barnes, Mullinax, and Denise all meet at a local cafe to discuss where they stand looking into Jerry Parks' murder.
Unfortunately, you know, the wheels of justice don't turn like you want them to or like I wanted them to, and I worked in it, you know.
The similarities, were there several similarities, or were they totally different, or is there anything?
The things leading up to your father's homicide and the things leading up to Dr. Millstein's homicide are almost identical.
Even though a suspect was never named in the investigation into Jerry Parks' murder, all three agree that there's sufficient evidence to reopen the case.
There was no grief.
None.
No emotion of
Zero.
anger. Nothing. Nothing like a moral person would have that had any care in the world for someone at all.
This was probably a pretty recent photo of him. One of the last ones that were taken. It's been a nightmare.
I'm sorry, I can't do this. I can't do this. I need to go outside. I'm sick.
I don't like this. I don't like this.
It's okay.
No, I can't.
You
Michael,
okay?
I cannot do this. It's just too much, too much. I don't know, it's just...
Just calm down. It's gonna be all right. Just take deep breaths and relax. Maybe this is gonna help you get your dad's case.
They
Get
can't help me
justice.
do that,
Well,
Michael.
they
The police can
might.
do that.
More than anything, I've watched her suffer, you know, suffer with depression and anxiety because of all this. Watched her struggle to work hard and try and solve her dad's murder just to be let down. But Denise will never, ever give up until she gets justice for her father.
It takes several minutes before Denise is ready to continue.
I'm sorry. I still want justice for my dad. I know he would never turn his back on me, and I can't turn my back on him.
Although Jerry Parks' case quickly went cold, there was a major break into the Millstein case in 2007. After receiving a tip, Detective Barnes contacted a friend of Gary Parks, who seemed to know a lot about Dr. Millstein's murder.
We spoke to him, and all the indicators were there, everything. The body language, some of the things that he alluded to. I just knew in my heart that he was the guy that knew about this, and he did. I said, I want one thing, the truth. That's it. He goes, Gary killed him, he did it. And I said, you tell me exactly what he said. He says 3 days after the homicide, I came off the Arkansas River with my boat. Gary pulled up. He was crying and So finally I said, what is wrong with you? He goes, I did it. What do you mean, did what? What are you talking about, you know? He goes, I did it. I just went up and I stabbed the out of him while he was in bed. And that's what he did, 37 times. So that was another key thing. I mean, we never released that he was stabbed in bed. Why are you telling me this stuff? I just had to tell someone.
Detectives convinced Gary's friend to wear a wire, and over the following months, they recorded several incriminating conversations.
It's at 1:20 p.m. I'm going to hand this recorder to he's going to meet Gary Parks for lunch in Little Rock.
He goes, you know, I got a lot to lose, Gary. And he goes, I just wish you wouldn't have told me what you told me that night at the boat. And I believe Gary's the one that said, well, I'm afraid you're going to tell him something that's going to send me to prison for life. Just keep your mouth shut. Don't tell him anything. He said they have no bloody clothes and they have no weapon. Who would know that? The killer.
After 3 years of gathering evidence, Detective Barnes finally arrested Gary Parks for the murder of his stepfather.
When the Millstein case went to trial and we played one recording about him saying, hey, they have nothing. They don't have the clothes, they don't have a weapon, and that's when they pled it out.
Gary Parks pled no contest to first-degree murder.
Gary Parks got 30 years total for Dr. Millstein's death, with 10 suspended, with the agreement that he would help us get somebody else, which would be, in our thought, Lois Jane, his mother, in a conspiracy.
But Gary never made good on that deal. Nobody else was ever charged in Dr. Millstein's murder. Jerry Parks' murder case never reached a courtroom. Denise and Detective Barnes drive to the scene of the shooting 26 years ago.
This is Chanel Parkway.
So I'll park up here and we'll walk down because he was shot right there.
Yep.
You know, back in '93, this was rural.
Yes.
And at that time of the day, still, it's dusk.
Yeah.
You can see what's going on. So he's headed home. He's coming down here, and you see the traffic now.
It wasn't
26 years ago, there was probably 2 cars, 3 cars.
Right.
Maybe.
So let's say he had the red light. He's going to stop for just a second, and someone would have pulled up to stop that action. And he's probably saying, what? What are you doing? And then it pulled in and boxed him in and shot him.
There was bullet holes through the window and actually through the door of the car.
He was shot sitting down and driving.
Yeah.
He's got a weapon right there. That kind of makes me think that, does he know who this is?
He's a police officer. He would.
Exactly.
My first thing someone shooting me, I'm reaching for my weapon. You know, no matter who it is.
Right.
So something happened that he looked and saw something in that vehicle.
1 dead husband, 2 dead husbands. That's 2 dead husbands by homicide.
Right.
I mean, how rare is that? And the first one is still open?
You would have to look at that as being a black widow. She used men for money. When it got to where they were going to cut her off, she got rid of them.
All 3 of them, Barnes, Mullinax, and Denise, believe that the information they have compiled is enough to get the Little Rock Police Department to reopen the case. Denise decides it's time to call them.
Hello, you've reached the voicemail of Investigator Tommy Hudson with the Little Rock Police Department Cold Case Homicide Unit. I'm either out of the office or away from my desk at the time you called. If you would, leave your name and number at the sound of the tone, and I'll return your call as soon as I can.
Hi, Investigator Hudson. This is Denise Hickman. I was calling you back. Some of the things that I've heard recently, I would like to discuss with you. I believe this case is solvable, and I believe you can do that for me. If you'll give me a call back at your earliest convenience, I would appreciate it. Thanks, sir. Bye-bye. I left a message. Give them a little while longer and see what they do. If it doesn't happen on this earth, God will take care of it.
Minutes after Denise left her message with the cold case detective, he calls back.
Hang on. Well, hello. Yeah, hi, Investigator Hudson. How are you? I just have a couple of people that I would like to give you their information and for you to maybe talk to.
She's eager to pass along the material she and the investigators have collected on Jerry Park's death and the connections they see between his murder and Dr. Millstein's murder.
Yeah, can you do me a favor?
Sure.
Can you email me the stuff that you got there? That way I can track that stuff and I can keep up with it where it's right there in front of me. Because when I come in the mornings, if I don't have the cord, first thing I do, I look at my list of stuff I got to do, and there it'll be for me.
Yes, sir.
Do you mind emailing that to me?
Not at all. I will get that to you.
Then we'll go from there, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
So that's a bit, oh my God. Yeah, so I mean that's positive. That's more than anybody's called me back in a long time. So I'm gonna email him some information that we have and he's gonna go over it, and I think we're gonna move forward from here. So it looks hopeful. I'm very grateful for that. That was awesome.
I think that's really a positive thing. I really do, you know.
Yeah.
This is a lot more positive than it has been, you know. And that's all it needs. It just needs someone to pick it up and run with it, you know, and work it.
26 years is a long time, though.
Yeah, very long. Very long. You know, people don't understand that when there's a homicide, the countless people that it affects. I mean, I was an investigator. It affected me. It's an injustice. There's a murderer walking around free.
Lois Jane, who was never named a suspect in Jerry Park's death, died in 2018 at the age of 65.
I was very disappointed that we weren't able to work a case against Lois Jane. It was disappointing because I feel like she got away with 2 murders.
Gary Parks is still serving a 30-year sentence for the murder of Dr. Millstein, but he will be up for parole in 2023. Gary Parks has never been named a suspect in connection with Jerry Park's killing.
This process, and looking at it as a whole, has been a healing process. I've had to confront things that I thought I was over a long time ago. I have moments to where I would want vengeance more than justice, and then I have moments where I'm satisfied with, especially trying to be a Christian, forgiving, just let the justice system take care of it as it will.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
It's nice seeing you again.
Nice seeing you too. Watch your hands there, Bill. Tell my daddy on you.
Take care.
You too. Sending this email to Investigator Hudson with Little Rock PD with some information that we had talked about earlier as far as some names and phone numbers of people for him to contact. Didn't really think it was going to turn out the way that, you know, I wanted it to, because I've been so disappointed in it before, but it seems like that this has been a great thing, and just see where it goes. When Jane died, a lot of anger that I had left. It really did. It was like it was gone. I don't hurt like I did, but I mean, I still think about my dad every day. He always had a smile on his face. He always wore a suit and a tie. That's how I remember him.